Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. If you don't, go to hell. Appreciate you guys stopping by the program today. So the big news for Miami Dolphins today out of Mike McDaniel's mouth is that Bradley Chubb and Cam Goode are opening up their window to practice, so they will start making their way back. Bradley Chubb, of course, has been out all season with this gnarly knee injury that he's had that's hampered the Miami Dolphins. Certainly been a big blow to their pass rush not having Bradley Chubb, and the idea that he is going to make his way back this week, at least to the practice field, is great news. He's a guy who's certainly dealt with a lot of injuries in the past, and we had the whole Shaq Barrett drama that went down, which I guess got a new wrinkle because Drew Rosenhausen said that when Mike McDaniel said, he had just learned on Tuesday when the news came out that Drew had said that he told Chris Greer already that his intention was to play for the Dolphins, and it made it seem like, was there a riff there? Was Mike McDaniel just lying? I don't know. I don't even know if it's an interesting story enough to care about, especially knowing how good Andrew Van Ginkel has been. So even Shaq Barrett coming back and being not Andrew Van Ginkel feels like it would just annoy Dolphins fans to see him out there unless he was an absolute friggin' monster. Nothing against the guy. It's just one of those strange things. But Bradley Chubb and Cam Goode are apparently going to return to practice this week. And that'll certainly help things out. Now, does that mean that they'll be back? We're not sure. It's going to be dependent upon how he looks. On the other side of reinforcement, it does seem like Kendall Fuller is going to be back, which obviously is huge for the Dolphins secondary. Cam Smith feels very much like he is going to be out at least this week, Mike McDaniel said. And I guess Cater Co, who remains a little bit of a mystery with his back getting bent the way that he was. But certainly been very frustrating with Cam because, he's dealt with a bevy of injuries to be where he's at. It just feels like this sophomore season hasn't really got out of the starting blocks for him. But if Bradley Chubb is able to provide you with something in these final these final games, I think it's absolutely a monster. The Dolphins really couldn't get any pass rush going on Jordan Love with his last game, and certainly you would think that Chop Robinson would welcome the reinforcements, as good as the kid has been. With the limited resources he has around him and learning the tutelage and all that type of stuff, all that's been very, very impressive from Chop Robinson, but they certainly need more, and that was quite clear, and what we was very noticeable in this last game against the Green Bay Packers. So that's going to be a welcome thing, and of course a lot of the cold weather stuff was still the talk of town with the Miami Dolphins, rightfully so. Knowing in the holiday weekend how much they got mocked about it. There was a funny exchange though, and it was Jaylen Waddle, and this made me supremely jealous of Jaylen Waddle because Jaylen Waddle is either a great liar or he just lives in blissful aloofness of any sports narratives that there are, which was just great because he was asked about the idea. He's like, all right, so you've heard this whole thing about the Dolphins not being tough. And Jaylen Waddle genuinely was like, huh?
About the bigger picture, though, that this is a speed team and not a tough team. You hear that a lot, and you heard it after Thursday night's game. What's your response?
I never heard it. I never heard that before.
Wow. I was like, really? Now, it could just be you could just have to applaud Jaylen Waddle because that's a stop a reporter in their track. They have no follow-up to that, which this didn't. You're stoning a reporter in their right in their tracks. Do I believe him? Not necessarily. I would find that hard to believe, just knowing how Mike McDaniel seems to be as putting all that narrative out there and having that message out there. I would have a hard time believe Jaylen Waddle doesn't really know that, but it's a fantastic move, and you have to give him props. You want to talk about, shaking defenders out of their shoes. He just shook the reporter out of his shoes. He's like, I've never heard of such a thing. What do you mean? Tough? Not tough? I don't. What? Who? What? I don't know. But that was that for me was just I was like, you know what? You got to give Jaylen Waddle a tip of the cap to something like that. And the Dolphins obviously have a lot of things that they have to clean up. And Mike McDaniel has them going into this week with maybe getting some reinforcements, but also taking on a Jets team that, like, if you really want to send the Dolphins fan over the edge, lose to this Jets team, which they shouldn't, because this Jets team has basically fired everybody. They are counting down the days to the draft. You have them hoping they get Cam Ward instead of having Aaron Rodgers next year. How the mighty have fallen for the great Aaron Rodgers. But you lose this game if you're not able to if you're not able to take out the Jets. Man, do you want to piss off the fan base? Because it has been interesting. Everybody is doing this thing where, like, oh, they're ready to take jobs and they're ready to hot seat people and all that type of stuff. I'm genuinely at the point right now where I don't think that's decided yet. I really don't. The Dolphins they're too in the midst of this. First of all, they're not out of the playoff race yet, right? Now, please, Cleveland, take out the Broncos to help tonight. But you're too in the midst of this to really know, right? Like, if the Dolphins ran the table and even didn't make the playoffs, is like McDaniel really getting fired of a 10-win team? Is Chris Greer going to get fired off a 10-win team that had 4 games without their quarterback? Right or wrong? Do not mistake what do not mistake what I think is going to happen for what should happen, or whether you think the organization is going in the right direction. I'm just saying, outside of the Dolphins finishing at the worst 7-10, right? Does an 8-9, 10-win Dolphins team, does that really get anybody fired when their quarterback missed a quarter of the season? Does it? Maybe it does. Maybe it's got Stephen Ross so it'll have him so nutty he feels. I don't think that there's a shot that happens. Outside of just pure something. I think I said this after Thanksgiving. I said this going into the Thanksgiving thing, or maybe it was after Thanksgiving thing. I said you have to pull an Eberflus for that to happen. You need to have something really, really, really embarrassing happen for hot seat stuff to happen. Now, I will say there was something today that made, if I was the owner, and I would have raised an eyebrow at something, because in those 4 games you didn't have Tua. You, of course, put your faith in Skylar Thompson. And today, Mike McDaniel announced that Snoop Huntley will be QB2 for the Miami Dolphins. Which, look, objectively, Snoop Huntley, I feel like, is a better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. But I think this is crazy that the Dolphins, once again, leans back to, I can't believe the Dolphins went into this season thinking that guy was going to be good enough. And maybe they just never thought Tua was going to get hurt or wasn't going to be a thing. But if you want, the indictment, either A, of development of a player, or B, selection of a player, or C, feeling like you had enough on your roster, them basically saying today, we're rats off a ship on Skylar Thompson, to me was like, oh, okay. I don't disagree with it. I'd rather have Snoop out there in a bad situation and Tua's not ready to go than I would Skylar Thompson. But it just kind of shows you, okay, Sky, it's been a good run, dude. But I think it's about time. It's about high time we've come to the end of this. That to me spoke. It spoke a lot. I mean, look, you kind of knew after the Patriots game and the whole debacle that was the scoop and score, that had to annoy everybody a lot. But now you add on top of it, all right, Tyler Huntley is going to be good to go, and he's healthy to go, and he's healthy enough to give you everything that he's got. Where are we at with this? And I think that now you have your answer. So on the good side of things, Bradley Chubb is back. Cam Goode is back. Snoop Huntley is the backup. On the bad of it, they kind of effed up on the whole Skylar Thompson thing. I mean, I think that is now as clear as day. First you kind of knew it because they could have winked an injury last week if it would have gone to disaster land. But now, knowing that he is basically leapfrogged him and taken over the backup job, well, now it can be said that they blew that one. and they're in a spot where that's going to be a question mark all year. It's like, how did they not have themselves better prepared for that? And there's going to be a lot whether they finish with 8, 9, or 10 wins, or even in the or even in disaster mode of where they're at. Even if they finish in that realm, the Dolphins are still going to be in a place where they're going to have to do a lot of soul searching because of the decisions they made, the people they believed in, putting the roster together, and the guys they let go, and how they thought about piecing this the right way. I mean, signing a guy that wasn't sure he was going to play football, the pursuit of Odell Beckham Jr. Look, they have some wins on there. Jonnu Smith, big-time win. Calais Campbell, big time win. I mean, they had some nice ones in there. I don't want to give them, you can't chalk up all L's for the Miami Dolphins, but certainly, with some decisions looming on that defense, and just then the overall thing of it's not even just a cold thing, but you think about how much of the defense was mad about Fangs losing, and you look at what Vic Fangio's doing in Philadelphia, and you think about Deshaun Elliott, right, where everybody came out and they were really mad at Deshaun Elliott, but maybe Deshaun Elliott had a point. That was it's one thing. It's one thing to hear it from an opponent, or it's one thing to hear it from your fan base or pundits, but now you've had former players, current players, opponents, all kind of, players who came in who were former opponents have all kind of inferred this whole thing. They put on a good front, and they tried to, change the image of it, right? It's funny, you think of the Dolphins, they were the team famous for Bullygate and Richie Incognito harassing his teammates and that crazy scandal. And then you had to go to they had an anti-bullying organization. Remember, they had the squad that what the hell was that Stephen Ross put together with Jason Taylor and Dan Marino and Curtis Martin and Tony Dungy were all there together. And I don't think they ever met. But the Dolphins, who were once famous for a bullying scandal, then became anti-bullying, then all of a sudden wanted to be pro-bullying again. And none of it really worked out. The Richie Incognito thing, nor when they went to go anti-bully, and now when they've gone to try and go pro-bully again. That hasn't worked out thus far. But look, they're not dead yet. They have still some games here to make good on this. The one thing you can say in a playoff chase, if the Dolphins could somehow get on a streak, the one thing with all those playoff teams that are ahead of you, while their schedules look easy, they're not all elite teams either, which means they can get got. And maybe if the Dolphins can somehow take care of their business with the remainder of their games, okay, then maybe there is an opportunity there. But, it's hard to feel great right now with the morale of the team, even with the remaining 5 games they have, 2 against the Jets, 1 in Cleveland that's currently on a Sunday night that might get flexed. We'll see. And Houston's kind of been up and down this year, but certainly has a lot of firepower. There's definitely a lot of offensive weapons in the last 5 games that now that you did lose, I guess, McCaffrey, you don't have to face that behemoth, but there are a lot of offensive weapons that make you look at what the defense just put forth, and you're like, I don't know about that one. So we'll see. But for now, if they do get Bradley Chubb back this week or soon, that certainly is a welcome arrival that they need very, very much.